The silence was bought with grants, but the graves speak louder. In the hush of our parliaments and the rustle of foreign contracts, Africa was auctioned, one spreadsheet at a time. I do not speak from the podiums of New York or the summits of Geneva. I speak from the red clay of Ouagadougou, where the bones of our elders remember deals they never signed. I am not a career diplomat. I am a son of soil and sweat, testifying from the ruins left by the IMF and the World Bank, two syndicates who rebranded shackles as reforms and theft as development. They came bearing promises wrapped in paper: stabilization, liberalization, structural adjustment. But behind those words were scissors, cutting our budgets, our hospitals, our breath. The drums of our ancestors are muffled by debts we did not choose, and our poverty was not born of idleness, but designed in Washington boardrooms and Geneva vaults. They never came with whips, just white papers and pens, but the result was the same bondage. Contracts, not chains, recommendations, not rifles. Yet still we bled. Our schools emptied, our clinics crumbled, our granaries starved in silence while the language of assistance echoed louder than the cries of hungry children. I speak not from the luxury of think tanks, but from the dust of forgotten villages, where the only adjustment we know is the tightening of belts and the shortening of breath. The IMF and World Bank came not to heal, but to harvest. They walked through our ministries not with compassion, but with calculators. They said we were unstable, so they administered pain. They said we needed discipline, so they imposed famine. They told us trim your budgets, sell your assets, open your borders. We did, and watched our hospitals decay, our lands sold, and our dignity diluted like currency. They said cut your subsidies. We obeyed, and watched farmers collapse under the weight of imported leftovers. They called it reform. But it was eulogy written in economic terms. Every agreement was a scalpel, every loan a leash, every disbursement a dagger wrapped in promises. They told us to believe in market forces, while they sat above the market forcing every outcome. They said, liberalize your economy, then monopolized our futures with their corporations. They demanded transparency, yet refused to reveal the true cost of their conditions. We did not enter contracts, we entered cages. Our leaders were cornered, our sovereignty auctioned, and those who resisted, replaced, silenced, or forced to sign anyway, with the pen of desperation dipped in ink made of debt. What is structural adjustment but structural abandonment? What is fiscal discipline but forced malnutrition? We are told our economies are recovering, yet the people remain buried under layers of recovery plans that never touch reality. We are told to trust the same hands that tightened the rope. They brand us developing, as if we are seedlings in their garden, dependent on their sunlight. But Africa is not a seed. Africa is the soil, and the roots are deeper than their data. They say we must privatize our water, but when it rains, we remember we never needed permission to drink. They say we must deregulate, yet the only thing unregulated is our suffering. They lend us dollars and call it generosity, while interest mounts like ancestral curses. Our currencies crumble, not because we are incapable, but because we are cornered, boxed into frameworks we did not build, supervised by architects we did not invite. And when our economies collapse under the weight of these prescriptions, they return, offering more of the same poison, this time as support. We are not failing, we are being failed by those who profit from our fall. And they know, they always knew, because the numbers are precise, the austerity is engineered, the desperation is planned. We live under financial colonialism, a newer empire with no flag but many victims. Yet even in the darkest moments, the drums beneath our feet do not forget. They remember trade routes before colonizers, healing before consultants, dignity before debt. And we too remember. We remember when our elders fed families without credit scores. When the soil fed the people, not foreign bank accounts. When a handshake was a covenant, not a conditionality. Let them not speak of African poverty without first speaking of African theft. Let them not speak of African corruption without first opening their vaults. This silence is betrayal. This quiet is complicity. But the thunder is returning, and this voice is only the beginning. They say we owe, but never ask who owes us. They measure our progress in repayments, never in healing. They tally our GDP but ignore the graves. And behind every disbursed loan is a noose, Loop not around the necks of the corrupt, but around the futures of the unborn. This is not debt. This is design, engineered dependency, calculated desperation. They did not just lend us money, they rewrote our destinies in ledgers. The loan comes first, then the lecture. They give you conditions for their generosity, prescriptions for your poverty. And once you accept, they bring in the auditors, the missions, the technical experts. Your national budget becomes a group project, graded in Washington. And with every round of negotiations, we lose something real, a school, a clinic, a job. We barter our sovereignty for survival, and the price tag is always in dollars. But the payment is always in blood. How can a continent so rich be this poor? We mine cobalt by moonlight, yet can't power our hospitals by day. We export gold and import expired medicine. Our oil flows to distant markets while our roads crumble into dust. The numbers do not lie, but they are told by liars. The IMF tells us to restructure, when what they mean is surrender. The World Bank speaks of poverty reduction strategies, but they reduce everything except poverty. They tell us to cut public jobs, then blame us for unemployment. They say we are too reliant on aid, while making us addicted to loans. And every repayment is a ritual, a sacrifice of the people's dignity on the altar of foreign capital. They disburse $1 billion today, and tomorrow demand $1.5 billion in austerity. They offer lifelines wrapped in thorns. Temporary relief that leads to permanent dependency. They push cost recovery in healthcare, so the sick pay in suffering. They champion efficiency in education, so schools become empty slogans. And then they write reports celebrating our commitment to reform. Even as our children learn under trees, and our nurses faint beside dying patients. They speak of digital transformation, yet our tech innovators are exiled by bandwidth poverty. They talk blockchain in boardrooms, while our grandmothers trade grain with memory and trust. We bleed in clinics with no gauze, while consultants write prescriptions priced in consultancy fees. We trade their dollars in dust, while they encrypt their wealth in blockchain and fly it offshore. We host development summits on lands we don't even own, lands sold in silence, signed away by the same hands that hold the begging bowl. And all the while, their consultants grow rich on our diagnostics. They fly in, stay in hotels we cannot afford, draft policies we didn't request, then leave before the dust settles. Meanwhile, our graduates roam the streets, fluent in theories of growth that never grew a single meal. This is the economy of illusion. A rigged casino where the house always wins, and Africa is never the house. But we are not blind. We see how interest rates serve as weapons. We see how credit ratings are shaped by geopolitics, not facts. We know the real crisis is not debt. It is theft dressed as aid. We are told to trust in the market, but the market has never trusted us. So we build our own. With code, with cotton, with community, with innovation from Kigali to Kumasi, with apps birthed in back rooms and brilliance forged in blackout nights. We refuse to measure wealth in bonds alone. We measure it in autonomy, in breadth, in whether a mother can deliver a child without begging a foreign fund. Africa is not a borrower by nature. It is a creditor robbed of recognition. And the real balance sheet of justice, it's not in their spreadsheets. It's in the soil, the sweat, and the memory of who we were before debt became our surname. The script was never written in Africa, but it was written about us, penned in the smoke-filled halls of Bretton Woods, edited in G7 meetings, annotated by rating agencies, and enforced with smiles, sanctions, and soldiers. From the moment they drew those lines on maps, they also drafted the terms of our future. Terms we never consented to, terms still used to deny us breath. They say we are developing, but it is their blueprint that keeps us behind. The IMF, World Bank, and their cousins in global finance wrote rules that praised poverty management, not poverty elimination. They replaced plantation overseers with portfolio managers. Instead of stealing our crops, they now monetize our compliance. They convinced us that free markets were the promised land, then barred us from entry. WTO treaties told us to open borders, so we did, and watched our industries die as their exports flooded our shelves. World Bank consultants promised efficiency, so we obeyed, and watched our public enterprises collapse into privatized scavenger hunts. They called it modernization. But what they modernized was exploitation. Look closely, they set the prices for our cocoa, but not for their iPhones. They decide the creditworthiness of nations. While ignoring the theft they orchestrated, they destroyed Gaddafi's dream of a gold-backed African currency. Not because it failed, but because it threatened to succeed. Africa is trapped in a rigged theater. The stage is global, but the scripts are colonial, and the audience, always watching. Our rating agencies, investment banks, intelligence outfits. AFRICOM does not keep peace, it keeps pressure. CA-backed regimes do not protect democracy, they protect debt continuity. We export diamonds and import toothpicks. Our hands dig treasure, but our shelves stay bare. They write laws in Geneva that govern our wombs in Accra. Ghost signatures shaping futures with no fingerprints from our people. When we attempt to rewrite our path, through crypto, through barter, through continental cooperation, they send advisors, not to support, but to surveil. They fear African unity more than they fear African war. Because unity demands new laws, new value systems, new maps. And in their systems, maps are fixed, drawn divide, value is extracted, not created. Every continent has its contradictions, but only Africa is told that its pain is proof of incompetence, never interference. We are blamed for inflation, but not for the dollar fluctuations that spark it. We are told to trust legal systems that rule against us before we even speak. International arbitration is a chamber of echoes. Foreign corporations win, African states pay. Even in global media we do not appear as thinkers, only as victims or villains. But the world knows the truth. They know why over 70% of our trade still flows through ex-colonial powers. They know why our resources leave raw, but our people remain unemployed. They know why reform is always promised, never delivered. They designed it that way. Yet something is shifting. Our youth are refusing to inherit the script. Coders in Lagos building fintech that bypass borders. Designers in Nairobi carving new narratives in code and cloth. Farmers in Kumasi planting without permission. Harvesting without apology. We are done being the background. We are becoming the authors. And our story will no longer be footnoted in someone else's textbook. We are done asking for inclusion in institutions that were built to exclude us. We are building new ones. Across the diaspora, from Brixton to Brooklyn, we are remembering that sovereignty begins not with recognition, but with refusal. Refusal to perform for cameras while our dignity is negotiated inside rooms. Refusal to clap for our colonizers' grandchildren when they come to evaluate our performance. We have nothing to prove to those who built the measuring stick. Let them keep their ratings. We are busy rewriting the script. And this time, the ending is ours to decide. The time for negotiation is over. The soil does not debate whether it can grow. It simply grows. And Africa, like that soil, is rising again, unapologetically, unpermitted, and unmapped by colonial instruments. We will not wait for permission from those who profit from our paralysis. We will not beg institutions that once branded our brilliance as burden to now validate our vision. The rebirth of Africa will not be televised by foreign broadcasters. It will be cultivated by the calloused hands of its own children. We are not asking for a new world. We are building one. From scratch, from seed, from source. Let the IMF keep its conditions. We are rewriting the terms. We will build factories with our hands, not wait for handouts priced in interest. We will stitch our clothes, assemble our tools, craft our machines, not as charity but as inheritance. We will code our value into the blockchain, not to impress Silicon Valley, but to free ourselves from central banks that never saw our worth. We will not measure wealth in exports alone, but in dignity retained, in sovereignty practice, in futures not mortgaged to distant boards. They sold us paper maps, but we now move through the world in data and code. They own nations with algorithms, not armies, but we too have entered that realm, and this time our footsteps leave digital fingerprints of freedom. Across the continent, young Africans are minting futures that can't be devalued by Western indices. A trader in Abadan no longer waits for Lagos to set the rate. She calculates value on her phone. A farmer in Kudoga doesn't wait for foreign forecasts. He maps the rain through local apps. A designer in Dakar launches a brand, ships through e-commerce, collects crypto. Not 1 cent filtered through colonial currency controls. This is sovereignty in action. We're moving from borrowed infrastructure to native innovation. From IMF drafted budgets to community-driven blockchains. From dependency to digital emancipation. No longer will we sell raw cocoa to buy back chocolate. No longer will we license our own ideas from foreign patent offices. No longer will we define progress through graphs that ignore the beating heart of the village. We are reclaiming food that speaks our soil's language. We are building decentralized energy that doesn't answer to offshore shareholders. We are creating governance models that flow from elders' wisdom and youth innovation, not imported constitutions stitched for another land. This is not anti-globalism, it is anti-submission. We are not against cooperation, we are against control. If the world wishes to walk with us, it must first stop standing on our backs. Because we remember the cost of delay. We remember the children who died waiting for clinics that never came. We remember the farmers who fell waiting for subsidies that were slashed to appease a spreadsheet. We remember the mothers who walked miles to birth their babies in debt-funded hospitals with no lights. This memory fuels our mandate. And our mandate is this: never again. We do not need their applause. We need our autonomy. And we have learned that sovereignty is not declared. It is built. Brick by brick. App by brick. Seed by seed. We no longer seek inclusion in their world. We are crafting a new reality where value is defined by liberation, not liquidity. And in that world, Africa is not the case study. It is the blueprint. Let them monitor. Let them issue forecasts. Let them write warnings in their reports. We are not afraid of their graphs. We are guided by the drums. And the rhythm has changed. The revolution does not begin in boardrooms. It begins at the foot of the mountain, in the dust of the mechanic's hands, in the hum of the market, in the rhythm of needle and thread. While they debate reforms in capital cities, the people have already begun governing their futures. Dignity is not a policy, it is a posture, and across Africa the people are rising, not as petitioners but as proprietors of destiny. The farmer in Tamale, who tills land older than the flag, understands sovereignty more than any elected official. The seamstress in Bobo-Dioulasso, who weaves Kent without subsidy or speech, embodies independence more than all the summits combined. The coder in Kigali who creates an app to bypass broken bureaucracy is rewriting governance. Not through law, but through logic. The future does not wear a tie. It wears calluses. The children of this soil are no longer waiting for elites to awaken. They are becoming the architects of liberation. One innovation, one solution, one refusal at a time. From informal settlements to tech labs, from sewing machines to solar panels, we are not building for applause. We are building to survive with dignity, to thrive with pride, to restore the ancient rhythm of self-reliance. They said we needed foreign investment, but we invested in ourselves. They said we needed aid, but we had ancestors. They said we lacked capacity, but they never saw the power beneath the poverty. Our lands are sacred, but our deeds are missing. A village uprooted by a contract no elder ever signed. But we are returning. Not just to the land, but to its memory, to its stewardship, to its rhythm. From Makoko to Medina, from Soweto to Esego, the grassroots have become the drumbeat, no longer silent, no longer deferential. The people are not waiting for freedom, they are growing it. Real leadership is not seated, it is mobile. It walks the fields, it listens in the markets, it builds in the dark. And what is more sovereign than a woman who feeds her children without foreign coupons? What is more revolutionary than a young man who wires solar panels where the grid has failed him for decades? They do not need policy papers. They need protection from the systems that stifle them. Africa's greatest resource has never been its gold or oil. It has been its people. And now, they are awake. We are redefining work, not as wage slavery, but as creation with purpose. We are redefining governance, not as elections every 4 years, but as daily accountability to those who carry the nation on their backs. The elders warned us when the drums go silent, the people forget who they are. But the drums are loud again, and with them, a new literacy is emerging, one written not in colonial grammar, but in the native syntax of struggle, of resilience, of return. From the herbalist in Goma to the drone engineer in Nairobi, from the storyteller in Kingston to the herbal farmer in Niger, we are converging. Not as charity cases, as creators, as thinkers, as doers. They thought the revolution would come in marches. But it came in microloans, in co-ops, in community schools. It came in WhatsApp groups organizing food drives, in diaspora networks funding new farms, Encoders writing freedom in Python while their lights flicker. And yes, it came in tears. But those tears watered something deeper, a harvest they cannot erase. We are not building for the West to notice. We are building for our children to inherit. Let them call it informal. Let them call it unbanked. Let them call it undocumented. We call it power. And that power, rooted in the people, does not ask, it arrives. The time for patience has expired. Africa will not wait in the lobby of global justice while its lifeblood is siphoned. The reckoning is not coming. It is here. And it wears no suit. It carries no briefcase. It knocks on no door. It enters like thunder, with the authority of the ancestors and the rage of the dispossessed. For too long, we've been told to be reasonable, to be reform-minded, to be grateful. But what gratitude do we owe to thieves? What thanks should we offer to systems that thrive on our stillness? Let the records show we did not consent to the looting. We did not approve the loans that mortgaged our futures. We did not vote for interest rates higher than mountains. We did not choose policies that closed clinics, killed industries, and exiled hope. Those decisions were made in closed rooms, behind closed doors, with pens dipped in betrayal. And now, the doors are breaking open. This is not about revenge. It is about restoration. The kind of restoration that cannot be brokered in Geneva. The kind that does not need approval from Paris or praise from Washington. The kind that begins from within, from whim to will, from memory to movement. We will no longer accept debt as destiny. Let the IMF keep their forecasts. We have our futures written in the stars, not spreadsheets. Let the World Bank keep their benchmarks. We are building value that no rating agency can quantify. Let the UN release their resolutions. We are resolving ourselves. Africa is not asking for inclusion in your world order. Africa is remembering it had one before you. A system where water was sacred, not bottled. Where knowledge was passed in rhythm, not textbooks. Where wealth was stored in the land, the herd, the harvest, not in vaults guarded by men who never sweat for it. We are not behind, we are returning, not backwards but homeward, and from that return, power rises. We are declaring every foreign-funded regime illegitimate if it sells its people for crumbs. We are exposing every budget that bleeds us dry while padding the pockets of consultants. We are tearing down the fast aid of development to reveal the scaffold of exploitation underneath. Africa will no longer beg for health care. It will build it with sovereign data, sovereign budgets, sovereign hands. Africa will no longer plead for clean water. It will protect it from the extractors who poisoned it. Africa will no longer ask for roads. It will pave them with stones from its own quarries, not debts from foreign banks. This is not rhetoric. This is rhetoric. Not the kind you see on television, but the kind that grows in silence. The kind whispered between women in marketplaces. The kind shared between sons and fathers by candlelight. The kind humming in the code of young developers. The kind tattooed in the scars of those who resisted before us. We invoke the ancestors, not as myth, but as mandate. They did not die for us to live in spreadsheets. They did not fight for us to worship bond ratings. They did not endure colonial chains for us to wear digital ones. From Ouagadougou to Kinshasa, from Soweto to Port, ah Prince, we rise, not in fragments but in chorus. No more negotiating over our existence. No more deferring to foreign judgment. No more restoring dignity with borrowed language. Our tongues are fire. Our memories are libraries. Our footsteps are prophecy. Africa was never the debtor. Africa is the creditor, the origin, the source. And now the interest is due, not in dollars. In land returned, in sovereignty restored, in names remembered, in lives dignified. The drums are no longer mourning. They are marching. The reckoning has no exit clause, no expiry date, no permission form. It is written. It is walking. It is here.